If the entire crypto market were a stage, then Ethereum used to be the spotlight. But today, that light is fading. No one pulled the plug. No one declared it over. People just stopped looking back. And in a world where speed and emotion determine value, silence is a death sentence. Welcome to MetaCryptoInsights, where every episode takes you beneath the surface of crypto's brightest lights to reveal what's really going on. No drama, no FOMO, just truth, told with the depth and emotion of someone who has lived through the storm. Today's episode is one of the hardest to accept, because it's not about a scam project. It's about a symbol that's slowly being forgotten, even though it still exists. On May 9th, 2011, Nokia's CEO sent an internal memo to all employees. In it, he compared the company to a man standing on a burning oil platform in the middle of the ocean. The only choice? Jump into the sea or burn. That message wasn't just an internal warning, it was the first public confession from the heart of a fallen empire. Nokia, just a few years earlier, held nearly 50% of the global mobile phone market. Then came the iPhone, then Android. And when the tech wave hit, the giant didn't collapse overnight. It lost everything slowly, because it was slow, stubborn, and emotionally disconnected. Over a decade later, the crypto world is beginning to feel a similar moment. This time, the name being whispered is Ethereum. Not because it failed, not because it's weak, but because it's floating in a stormy ocean, while other blockchains rise with speed, energy, and a culture that Ethereum is quietly losing. The scariest part? Ethereum is still alive, but it's losing its central place, quietly, steadily, without a sound. I still remember the first time I bought ETH. Back then, Ethereum wasn't just a coin. It was the symbol of a new world, decentralized, trustless, where code is law. It was the answer to injustice in traditional finance, a hope for a generation that didn't want to be controlled by banks or governments. Everyone who bought ETH wasn't just investing, they believed. And I, like millions of others, once believed Ethereum would change the system. From 2020 to 2021, Ethereum reached its peak. DeFi exploded. NFTs took over the art world. GameFi turned mouse clicks into real income. Every major trend started on Ethereum. Curve, Aave, Maker, Uniswap, OpenSea, they all launched from Ethereum. ETH didn't just go up in price, it grew in value. It became the heart of the entire industry. Holding ETH felt like holding a piece of the future. But then, things started to shift. Not with noise, not with chaos, just quietly. From $3,700, ETH slipped to $3,000, then $2,500, then $1,800, and just hovered there. While Bitcoin hit new highs thanks to ETFs, Solana came roaring back with meme momentum. Base surged with its young builder community. Ethereum, still on testnets, still upgrading. But no one really talks about it anymore. And that's what started to scare me. Not the price drops, but the loss of emotion. No one asks me about ETH anymore. No one shares new Ethereum projects. No one flexes their ETH wallet like before. It's still strong, but it's no longer loved. And in this market, being forgotten is more dangerous than being hated. I'm not the only one who feels this. The numbers back it up. TVL is down more than 60% from its peak. Active users have dropped. Staking yields are just 2.8%, lower than US Treasury bonds. ETH is no longer a must-hold asset, no longer the default for farming, swapping, minting NFTs. ETH is being pushed to the sidelines of its own ecosystem. That's when I switched perspectives, from believer to analyst. I stopped asking, why do I feel this way? And started asking, what's actually happening inside Ethereum? And what I found was more worrying than my feelings. Layer 2s, once seen as Ethereum's saviors, are now double-edged swords. Arbitrum, Optimism, Base are growing fast. Users are happy. UX is better. But the capital flow no longer returns to ETH. People interact with stablecoins and native tokens. ETH has become infrastructure, not a central asset. TVL is rising. User numbers are up. But the value doesn't flow to ETH. It's hollow growth. What about staking? With a 2.8% yield, who would choose ETH over US bonds? Who's willing to take crypto risk for lower returns than traditional assets? ETH has lost both its narrative and its financial appeal. And with no story and no returns, ETH is just a shadow of itself. I looked at the media, and the silence was deafening. Ethereum has no strong narrative anymore. Bitcoin is riding the digital gold wave. Solana has meme culture. Ton has Telegram. Base has AI. Ethereum, it's talking about upgrades. An EIP the average user doesn't understand. A long roadmap no one follows. No emotion, no noise. Ethereum has matured, but audiences want something vibrant, simple, and visceral. And that's when I realized Ethereum isn't being destroyed from the outside. It's being hollowed out from within. Its perfection, seriousness, caution, what once made it strong, are now turning it into a cold, soulless infrastructure. Layer 2s are strong, but Ethereum Layer 1 is silent. Builders chase incentives elsewhere. Users bypass ETH because they don't need it anymore. The ecosystem is expanding, but its core token is bleeding. That fragmentation is the price Ethereum is paying for pursuing scalability without a clear value accrual strategy. If ETH is no longer used, no longer accumulated, no longer rewarded, no longer needed for fees, then what role does it play? That answer, I believe, will determine Ethereum's fate in the next cycle. Because in crypto, technology isn't everything. Emotion is what keeps users coming back. And ETH, even though it powers everything, is losing that emotion day by day. If the first half showed us how Ethereum is quietly losing its place at the center because of internal shifts, this part is a mirror from the outside, where other blockchains didn't wait for Ethereum to catch up. They simply stole the spotlight. This isn't a knockout punch, it's a takeover, powered by speed, culture, and emotional resonance that Ethereum, for all its perfection and seriousness, failed to adapt to in time. Solana, Ton, Base, three ecosystems with very different philosophies, but the same secret weapon, emotion. Solana used to be laughed at for its network outages, but instead of giving lengthy explanations, they dropped memes. They slashed fees to nearly zero. They fused lightning-fast processing with internet culture, and just like that, meme coins became the gateway drug to blockchain adoption. Emotion replaced white papers, speed replaced roadmaps, and the users came pouring in. Ton didn't try to build a new network from scratch. They chose to coexist with Telegram, a platform where 800 million people were already waiting. No seed phrases, no external wallets. Users could interact with blockchain using something they already knew, a messaging app. That's UX that breaks all barriers. And when access feels that easy, people don't need to understand blockchain. They just need to feel like it works. Emotion beats engineering again. Base, meanwhile, didn't waste time debating roll-ups versus validiums. They flung the doors wide open for young builders. They didn't ask for perfection. They encouraged experimentation. And when you've got AI, memes, social fi, and NFTs all building at once, you don't need a narrative from the top. You have a living ecosystem where the users themselves tell the story. 3 ecosystems, 3 strategies. But one thing in common, they didn't wait to be perfect. They created energy. They created joy. They created FOMO. Meanwhile, Ethereum was still running testnets, still talking about upgrades, still using technical jargon. When you stay quiet for too long, someone else tells your story. When you move too slow, someone else takes your place. And when you're no longer the starting point, the market stops treating you as the center. That's not hate, it's just reality. So what should Ethereum do? It doesn't need to chase memes, but it does need a reason for users to stick around. A new story, a new narrative, a new system that lets ETH actually capture value from what's happening on Layer 2. A way to remind people that even if they're using Base, Arbitrum, or Optimism, they're still living inside Ethereum's house. Because if they don't feel that, they'll start thinking they've already moved on. And once that feeling sticks around long enough, the old name slowly fades away. Ethereum could choose a new role, the final settlement layer for the entire blockchain universe, the place that secures the most important transactions, the foundation for everything serious. That's a noble role, but it still needs to be told as a story. People don't invest because you're right. They invest because they feel trust. ETH needs a reason to stay in people's wallets, not just out of principle, not out of nostalgia, but because it holds real value, because it's an asset worth accumulating, because it's the gateway to a living, breathing ecosystem. If ETH no longer shows up in user behavior, then ETH is just infrastructure. Ethereum was once loved because it dared to redefine the world. Now, to survive, it needs to redefine itself. And the bigger lesson? No one is immune to time. No technology is unbeatable. Even an icon like ETH, if it doesn't learn to pivot, can be forgotten like Nokia, BlackBerry, or Yahoo. Not because it was weak, but because no one was talking about it anymore. So if you're a builder, an investor, someone who lived through the DeFi summer, ask yourself, do you still hold ETH today? Do you still feel proud calling yourself an Ethereum fan? Or are you just waiting for the right time to exit? Share your story in the comments, because Ethereum isn't just a platform, it's a chapter of history, and that chapter will either close or be continued by the people who still remember it. If this video gave you a fresh perspective, sparked something in you, or simply made you stop and reflect, hit that like button and consider subscribing to help us keep going. We'll keep searching for the real stories and deeper knowledge behind the crypto market. And hey, send this to that one friend who used to hold ETH with you. Let's keep discovering what's really happening beneath the surface. And as always, this isn't financial advice, just one piece of the story. The decision is yours. Be a smart investor in the world of crypto love.